All right, let's get started. Good evening, everybody. I'm really excited and welcome to Innovative Careers, STEM for a Sustainable Future. We're excited again to have you guys for this important conversation. At Do Something, we're known for essentially fueling young people to kind of really take action in their communities, and just continuously be a driving force behind their efforts of change. Today, we're going to explore how your careers shape the STEM field and create a more sustainable world, and essentially how our members can join in the action and be a part of that. This panel brings together incredible experts, you guys who are making an impact in your fields, using STEM to tackle real world challenges like climate change, clean energy, environmental justice. And our goal is really simple: to inspire and inform all of our members about the diverse career paths in STEM and how they can connect to building a better future on our planet. So again, we have Christy here from Green Jobs Boards, Dr. Hayes as well. He's going to let us know all the things about hydrogen energy. And then Dr. Gonzalez, who essentially fuels, again, a part of education for the next generation in sustainability. Christy, I am going to actually start with you and just kind of want to give an overview about how you decided to start or co-found Green Jobs Boards and kind of like what led you there. If you don't mind, I'll let you kick off.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I'm Christy Drummond. I'm the co-CEO of Green Jobs Board. And yeah, I'm currently an entrepreneur and founder of a climate tech startup. And so just for some context, I went to UC Berkeley and I studied environmental policy and city planning. So I have degrees more in the environmental policy and environmental science realm of things. And so, I was in many of y'all's same seats just a couple of years ago. And when I was in college, I was so passionate about climate and environmental issues, but I didn't see really good communications happening about it in the mainstream media. And I realized that if we were going to engage people, especially getting young people involved to take action on these issues that they care about, I realized that I wanted to be that type of messenger and communicator. And so I basically took my own skills that I kind of inherently had outside of the classroom with storytelling and media, and using social media to talk about the things I cared about. I basically took what I studied in the classroom with environmental policy and education and turned that into a media career. And yeah, during that time, I remember when I wanted to do media and communications and talk about climate, I went to my college career counselor and said, how can I build a career out of this? And no one could really give me good advice because they were like, I don't know, like that type of job doesn't exist yet. And so I just kind of had to go on my own journey of like teaching myself, going to lots of different conferences and events and seminars to kind of collage and DIY my own job in this field. And yeah, eventually I was able to build, an incredible business and brand doing climate media. And out of that, I realized that, my journey and my career was so difficult for me to manage. How could I, utilize my skills of media and storytelling to also think about how to get more people into jobs and positions into this space? And so I started a social media series that I called Green Jobs Board, where I was collecting resources and information that I felt were relevant to get people off the ground in the climate space. And it went basically very viral. And from there, basically people were like, can you turn this into a bigger resource? Because, we've been really struggling for a long time to find these opportunities. And yeah, we basically decided to become an organization and a company and help organizations in like the climate STEM, science space to find diverse talent. And so for me, it's now been 2 years of building a platform and a community online to help job seekers and students like all of you that are listening on how to make it easier through blogs and listings and resources to figure out, like, if you did study, X degree, or you are wanting to major in something in college, what are the career paths available to you? And so Green Jobs Board, we're really trying to break down those silos and make it easier for people, especially young people, to see themselves in this work and to get involved. So that's a little bit about why we started Green Jobs Board, and you all can visit greenjobsboard.us to check it out, during this talk and afterwards, because obviously visuals tell more of the story than what I can say. But I'd say in summary, like I'm just someone who's like, didn't see great representation of people who look like myself in these fields and realized that I wanted to do whatever I could with the tools and skills I could to lower the barrier of entry so other people could get involved with this too.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm actually probably more than likely going to like tap in with you also after this in regards to our magazine. I think the Green Jobs Board would be a great evergreen resource to live in it. So I would love to kind of canoodle on that. Um, but next, I'm going to present Dr. Hayes. I know you are a chemist in sustainability energy, specifically working with hydrogen. Can you
Yes,
tell us a little bit about what you do and how you've gotten to where you are today?
absolutely. So, hello everyone. My name is Dr. Jalal Hayes. A lot of people just call me Dr. Ja for short, as you see the over there, because my name can be very long and confusing a little bit sometimes. But I can remember how did I get into hydrogen? Well, it's been a long, long journey. Um, if I look back, wow. So essentially, I've always wanted to figure out how I can help people. And throughout high school, I was like, okay, I've been helping people for a while, and I was really good at it, tutoring, science, mathematics. But I said I want to do it on a bigger level, and I wanted to try to figure out what does that look like. And so my parents said, well, you can be a medical doctor. I said, okay, that sounds like the way. So got to go to college. So I went to Lincoln University of Pennsylvania. Fortunate enough to graduate with 2 degrees, general science and a history degree, because I was thinking about how I can really combine those two. Like if you don't know where you're going, if you can't look at things from where you've been, you don't know where to go. And essentially, that's how I got the 2 degrees. So, how I got into climate. Once I graduated, I was fortunate enough to work at NASA through Greenbelt, Maryland. And yeah, the Greenbelt, Maryland, by way of Howard University. And when I got there, that's when I learned about, I thought I was going to learn about space science, launching rockets. It's like, no, we're going to be launching weather balloons, actually. I was like, what is that? So, we got into launching weather balloons, analyzing ozone concentrations. And that's when I really start analyzing and seeing the environment on the science side, saying, wow, all the things that are in the atmosphere, what we breathe in, what we breathe out, and trying to figure out, okay, I understand the problem. So the internship taught me about the problem, but I really wanted to develop a solution because I love solving problems. So when I went into my doctoral work shortly thereafter at Delaware State University, we got into hydrogen. And at the time, hydrogen was just in a research and development stage. For those out there, may say, "What is research and development?" Basically, I was a lab person. I was in a lab doing work. So when I was at Delaware State University, they had the Center for Hydrogen Storage Research, and I studied under this guy by Dr. Andrew James Gowdy, and he taught me everything I needed to know in regards to hydrogen. And we was fortunate, black guys specifically, guy looked like me, and we worked in a lab of very diverse talent. You had Asians, you had Africans, you had Caribbeans, you had everybody. And I was fortunate enough to say, wow, not only I'm learning from a guy look like me, but I'm also surrounded by different cultures and I can learn something that's outside the science, which drew me back into the science thereafter. So anyway, finished up, went through school, was fortunate enough to do all the science stuff, publish articles. I'm fortunate enough got a patent, and I graduated with my PhD. With that, about 4 years after, no, was it 4 years? About 2 years after that, our patent was granted in this hydrogen technology that we developed, I developed while I was in grad school. And I said, I want to figure out how to sell it because I wasn't sure if people really was interested, but I knew that it had some value. So I went back to my university and said, "Hey, is it possible we could sell it?" They said, "Well, we don't even know what to do with it." So that's where my company, Elite Energy, was born. And I said, "Well, let me show you how what I'm trying to do." So I started a company, went through this process and program called NSFI Corp, did that process and said, okay, now can you sell us the technology? They said, well, we willing to license it and we want you to develop it. So in licensing and developing that technology, I said, wow. I'm actually going to grow this company. But in a grand scheme of things, God works in mysterious ways because I always wanted to help people. And this is my way of helping people, particularly people who don't look like me in underserved communities. Not only I'm able to show them what hydrogen is, teach them about what is hydrogen, because even though I got a wealth of knowledge, I had to know that a lot of people may not know what it is, all the colors and all of that stuff. What does it look like? All of that. I can teach them one, but two, I also can give them a job. So I follow this philosophy. We educate so I can employ, so they can deploy. So not only that I'm educating the students and the content, I'm also hiring them, which we started last year, into the field. So they work in the R&D field, but also have my co-founder who works with me. He does things that's outside of science, so we can hopefully deploy. What's the deployment? The green jobs. So even though we may not keep you, we are want to push young people and people that are from underserved community into green jobs that are currently out there. Hopefully emerging technologies such as hydrogen. So that's a little bit about me, how I got in hydrogen, and what I'm currently doing right now.
Love that. Oh my gosh, you had a journey, quite a journey.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, Dr. Gonzalez, I'm going to actually kick it off to you next. Again, I've been so lucky to witness a lot of what you've done already through 3M and the docu-series, and I'm just astonished. So, of course, I'm going to give you a moment so that way you can share your insight into your role and just how your journey has started and how you're able to essentially play an important part in sustainability today.
Thank you, Shano, and thank you, Christy and Jalal. Beautiful stories. I think that's the common factor, right? How we all started in with something as the North Star, and then as life happens and you discover new I think how when you start discovering yourself, right, then you realize that it's okay if your journey changes. So my journey has changed a lot. I'm originally from Costa Rica, and my journey began in marine conservation. I was 5 years old and I knew I wanted to be a version of Jacques Cousteau, whatever that meant. I had no idea what kind of, career that was. So I ended up going for my undergrad I specialize in marine conservation, working with coral reefs and sea turtles. And doing that work, I started noticing, I was pretty young, I was 19, 20, 21. I started noticing a lot of not just environmental degradation, but a lot of environmental and social injustices that were happening in rural communities in Costa Rica, in my native country. And at 25, I thought it was a great idea and it would be very easy to start a Keto 12 school. So I pivoted from marine biology and I launched a Keto 12 school with an interesting model where we sponsored 70% of the population and 30% of the population kind of paid, right, for the tuition for their kid, but also for another student that was from a low-income local community. The goal of the school was that we really empower students to learn through a model that they were able to know who was taking action in their community, in their region, in the world, in something that was really relevant to them, but also give them the opportunity to take action, to create something that was like actionable and feasible. So I did that for like 8, 9 years, and as I was doing it, I learned there was a whole field actually called sustainability education or transformative education. And that opened the doors for me to come to the States. And I thought I was just, gonna come here. I'm from the tropics. I love the tropics. And even though I have traveled all over the world and came to the States many times, I couldn't see myself somewhere else. But in Costa Rica, but that's part of that journey, what I was saying at the beginning, right? Like things change and it's okay if they change and if your passions kind of pivot a little bit. So I came to the States for a master's in social entrepreneurship. So similar to Christy, like that part of me was really like, I had it in me. I thought it was super exciting that you could create something that, had a business component, but you were doing it for a greater good. You were having an impact. And as I was doing that, I got to do a lot of research, international research, mainly in Indonesia, in Southeast Asia. but here in the States as well. And then I realized that, yeah, education was kind of like my thing because it allowed me to bridge what scientists like Dr. Hayes were doing with the community that Christy is serving, those passionate youth that are saying, where do I fit and how do I fit, right? So I specialize in the field of transformative education, which is pretty much that, creating like opportunities for youth to take action. And we can do it through the formal, right, classroom time, like when you go to school, but also during the after school time. That journey included another master's in ed and a PhD. And that's my journey. And I always like to tell people, like, you don't need to get all these degrees, right? You can do amazing thing without degrees, but if that route is your route, that's amazing. That was my route. And I eventually landed in California. I'm an ocean person. I was in Colorado when I first arrived to the States, and that was way too cold. So I landed in California, and here in California now at the moment, I am the chief, but also the Dean of Education and Learning at the California Academy of Sciences. We are one of the oldest museums of natural history collections and a research institution for sustainability. And our jam is regeneration. We do regeneration of the natural world, but also
Wow.
the human nature connection. So how do we make people fall in love with nature while
Mhm.
they're learning how to take action? So I have the honor of leading two amazing big departments, and we work with people in this beautiful museum, but also with people in the community. And as a woman, a Latina, a migrant, of course, the amount Dr. Hayes was talking about representation and working with people that talk like you, have an accent, look like you, right? All those things, and understand kind of like the barriers. I also had a lot of opportunities, just people that were kind enough to recognize that I needed, a hand, because it is difficult, right? And even if you don't face those barriers, finding the inspiration and I think the push to continue, right, staying interested, can be one of those challenges. So my journey has had a lot of like pivots, but that's life. And yeah, I encourage everyone to be open about having those pivots and those changes.
Okay, I love that. Okay, Christy, I'm going to bring it back to you. So, in a sense, we're talking about young people and forging those connections when it comes to science, sustainability. My next question for you is, the sustainability job market we've noticed is starting to evolve. So, what are some, or if you believe what you've come across, what are some of the most in-demand skills and roles emerging in the green economy? And if you could guess, looking ahead, what sectors do you feel are going to see the most growth in about the next 5 years?
Oh, I love these questions. I would say in general, from what we're seeing in the field, people that are able to do a lot of, data analysis, like being able to take like, really complex data sets and reports and being able to distill that down into quick briefs and summaries. Just that skill set alone is really important in an age of information and technology. We need people who are able to really be able to like translate big, broad sets of data, I think is really important. I would also say, like, obviously there is a huge emergence of AI, and for better, for worse, like it's here to stay. So I would say being able to also learn how to use tools like AI to be able to effectively like produce strategic reports and also do data management, I think is going to be really important. There's also a lot of like climate tech startups, companies that are going to be focused on decarbonization, that are going to need support in things like sales and marketing, development, fundraising. So I think having skills around like knowing how you can like really like market and push and help fund some of these very innovative technologies, I think will make you indispensable no matter what type of company or organization you enter. And then I would say like for industries, I mean, definitely like renewable energy, solar, wind, hydrogen. Those are all growing very rapidly and continuing to grow, especially in the private sector. And so I would say definitely being able to get certified or building skills in in renewables is really great for, you know, future job security. I would say also getting into like agriculture, there's a huge emergence around regenerative agriculture and people wanting to understand like food systems and like where are foods coming from and how to grow it, how to grow it better to protect the environment. And not just that, like also to like save farmers money and figure out how you're going to withstand you know, things from droughts to floods to frostbite on your crops. People who are able to also understand how to use tools like AI and research and you know, future projecting and all of that stuff, I think is going to be really critical as well. And I'd say the last thing, I think we're going to continue in a broader sense to need more communicators. I would say like as someone who works in the communications and journalism world, I think that sometimes people are like, oh, like, you know, maybe that's saturated or I can't do that. But I would say, again, like that may look like something that is not what you would traditionally read in a job description. It could be helping, again, like a climate tech company or an innovative company figure out like what is their 3 to 5 year strategy to market their products, to be able to tell the story of what their company is doing, right? There's a lot of creativity and artistry in that. That's not necessarily just strictly, you know, STEM technical skills. And I think that's important to know as well. If you're studying STEM, but maybe you lean a little bit on wanting to incorporate the arts, I think there's a huge place for that. And I just thought that was important to say because I'm sure my other fellow panelists will name more of like the very specific technical skills that will be valuable. But those are just some things I wanted to start off with.
Yay. Okay, I'm learning so much from you guys. I'm really excited. We're going to dive in a little deeper because, of course, even I have had my coworkers and essentially asked me, like, you know, Dr. Hayes, this is for you. What is hydrogen energy? And essentially, what are the biggest challenges and opportunities you see in scaling hydrogen technology for mainstream use?
Absolutely. Before I get into that, I want to say yes to everything Christy is saying because I'm actually looking for that right there. So yes to everything. So back to hydrogen. What is hydrogen? Let's take it back to grade school for a minute, right?
Break it
So
down. Yeah.
hydrogen is the first element on the periodic table. Essentially is the most abundant element in the universe. Is so abundant. And what people don't know, if you go to Christie's point, we talk about regenerative agriculture, hydrogen's always been around in the sectors. It's actually being used 55% globally in agriculture. So we've been using it. We just switching over from ag to over to power. So how do we use it in power? So there's the different colors on how we utilize it. The reason why we're looking at it in power, let me back up. The reason why we looking at this in power is because of the clean green that we all want to have. We want to be here for a long time. We want to make sure that we have sustainability when it comes to utilizing electricity. So we're looking for ways and avenues to do that. One is solar, wind. Then you got this little economy popping up called hydrogen that's coming through. And what they're looking at is, okay, we know this is one of the clean renewable energies.
Mhm.
How do we produce it, right? So that's the biggest question that's happening all across the globe. How we produce it, how do we store it, how we utilize it. That's actually the three sectors within the hydrogen economy. The first part is production. That's like the hard part, right? So what people don't realize is we already produce it. It's just dirty. That's the color gray. So I'm introduced to colors now. So there's all colors in the rainbow, but we're going to take apart the rainbow real quick. So the first one, I know it's not a rainbow, but it's gray hydrogen. So gray hydrogen has already been produced throughout us producing, we call it SMR in science, steam methane reformation. Basically saying we take all this gas and we produce all these other gases, right? And one of the gases is hydrogen. So we already produce it. It's just dirty. It's mixed in with CO2. It's mixed in with methane, all these other stuff. So they call it the dirty way of producing hydrogen. They want to get away from gray to green. So the green part is what everybody hears. What is green hydrogen? So green hydrogen is the clean way of producing it. So what does that look like? You're producing using solar panels, you're producing using wind, and you're going through this process called electrolysis, which essentially is a fancy word mean water splitting. You split in H2 and O. So you have water, and you got what is water chemical formula? H2O. And you just split in the H and the O, and you get two H's and one O. So the O, they probably release in the atmosphere because we all breathe in oxygen, right? Or the plants exchange oxygen with carbon dioxide, and go that route. But we capture the H and we use it for other applications. So that's the green. However, that's the challenge because it's very expensive. Because let's think about it. We still trying to get solar panels out. To Chrissy's point, that's why we need a lot of people in the solar industry. Wind, we still got to get people in the offshore wind. So the infrastructure is very expensive. So that's why the green is the ideal, but it's going to be expensive because of infrastructure. For those for infrastructure, we're talking about building all this out. So what we're trying to do now is settle for the blue. So the blue hydrogen is not as green, but is not as dirty as gray. And the blue hydrogen is essentially you're producing it through methane. So you had methane for chemical formula is CH4. So you get four hydrogens, even though you got that C that you really don't want, you at least get four hydrogens, and it's not as bad as the other ones in gray. So that's essentially what hydrogen is. It's already here. Why are they switching over to energy? And then those are the colors now. And there's this little thing I do want to add because Christy mentioned AI because they try to move things fast and say we need the power now. We introducing this concept called data centers, which drives a lot of power. I think it's about 32 gigawatts or 3.2 gigawatts. For the scientists out there who know the real number, please, I'm a chemist, I'm not an economist. So, in regards to the gigawatts, the data centers need that. So they switched to this thing called, or looking at pink hydrogen or yellow hydrogen, which is this nuclear plant thing they keep talking about, where you're using nuclear energy to produce hydrogen. So though that's the color that you may see around, but those what the colors are, those what they mean in terms of hydrogen. And hopefully you guys out there, you'll be like, oh, that's what they be talking about the whole time. Yeah, because I know as scientists, we can get real technical, but we gotta learn how to communicate to the public. But that's literally what it is.
Awesome. Um, Before we get back to you, Dr. Gonzalez, because I know, Christy, you have to hop and leave us very, very soon. I just really kind of wanted to give a question in terms of like insight for my next generation, my Gen Zs, my Gen Alphas who are in that process of coming into the space of green jobs. Many young people are passionate about climate work, but don't know where to start. What's your advice for someone looking to land their first role in sustainability?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm a little biased. I would say, my first key advice is to go on Green Jobs Board. Check out greenjobsboard.us. And we follow us on Instagram. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, LinkedIn, at Green Jobs Board on all social channels. I would say that is obviously a very amazing first step because we give you all the tools to get started. From like interview prep, resume support, careers you could be exploring. And yeah, we're going to be launching a new tool next month for job seekers that's going to even improve your experience even more, called Pathways, where you're going to be able to create an account and track jobs, track resources, get an AI cover letter tool, all of that stuff. So definitely stay tuned, sign up for our newsletter on Green Jobs Board. We definitely want to support everyone who's on this call and beyond. So share it with your friends too, if they're looking for opportunities. I'd say that's the first thing. Outside of that, I would say another key thing I would recommend people starting out is to be curious and to have a lot of conversations. I think when I was in college and I just didn't know exactly where I wanted to do things, I made sure that I wasn't just like pigeonholing myself into one specific career path. I was like, I'm going to like kind of like job date a little bit and kind of like meet different people to see like what kind of career paths I wanted to explore. So for example, for me, like I was interested in city planning. I was interested in potentially law school, and then I was interested in journalism came later. So I'll just focus on policy and city planning. And I basically like decided I created a LinkedIn account and I like messaged different professionals in those fields and ask, like, could I have 15 minutes to 1 hour of your time to just learn about, like, what was your career journey, kind of what we're doing here today, but like having a one-on-one approach to learn someone's career journey and to say, like, hey, this is what I'm studying. This is what I want to do. What kind of internship should I be exploring? What are some of the jobs that exist in this field? And again, like, don't limit yourself. Like, if you don't really like what that person says, or what that day to day is, like, I think that's okay for you to like say that. Like, don't force yourself into something you don't want to do. I think, our jobs consume a big part of our lives. So I think, especially when you're starting out, make sure you're being curious, you're exploring, and you're connecting to as many people as possible. Like, just last week, I had 2 or 3 people who were like, can I have 30 minutes of your time? Because I'm interested in exploring the field of, science communication. And yeah, I gave them 30 minutes of my time. And like, I thought that the way that they reached out to me was through an email or a LinkedIn message, very much explaining, like, hi, this is who I am. This is what I'm passionate about. I really love, could you do XYZ thing? Do your research on what that person does. Don't just say, hey, can I get on a call with you? Like, make sure you're showing that you like know what they do. And most people are going to say yes to you because people want to help out the next generation. And I would say that, like, that can give you some clues and insights on, like, what gets you excited? What are you passionate about? And I think it'll give you some, clues and connections that you never know where that's going to lead in the future. So I think start building those relationships as soon as possible, because those people may get you your future job someday.
Yay. Oh my God. Thank you so, so much. But I love the concept that I think the biggest thing that I've noticed about all three of you guys is this wonderful concept of wanting to pay everything forward, which is really huge, especially as you guys are talking about, the concept of diversity and inclusion within the sustainability field and green jobs. Christy, I know you have to hop. I want to say thank you so much for joining. I will make sure that our members have your information to, if they decide to connect or do that same one-on-one moment with you. But thank you again so, so much for your time.
Thank you all so much. Please, everyone who's on this call, also don't be a stranger. Please add me on LinkedIn, Christy Drutman. I'd love to support your career journeys. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining.
Thank you. Dr. Gonzalez, we're going to also pivot right back to you because I know you talk about education and being able to, again, also pay it forward. Why do you feel it's important for STEM education institutions to ensure that diverse and underrepresented communities are included in conversations about green jobs opportunities? And what are some simple yet effective ways that you feel you provide support?
Awesome. Okay. Big question, and I'll probably connect with what Christy and also Dr. Hayes mentioned. I mean, ways that I provide support as a person, just I firmly believe that representation is very, very important. You need to make sure that young people know that we used to be them. I used to be in those exact same shoes. I had the urgency. I didn't know what I could do, but I knew I had to do something. I could see environmental degradation in my community. I could see environmental injustices. So as a person, I'm very, very active. So the same as Christy mentioned, I get people asking me for, like, hey, 15 minutes advice, 30 minutes advice, or maybe it's just through, an email or a LinkedIn message. Absolutely. That's a way that you, as a professional, can continue to make a difference. In my job, I'm very fortunate because I work for an institution that here in San Francisco is very well positioned. I mean, we are almost 200 years old, so we have many resources. But one of the things that I find most exciting about the job that I do, and I find it very impactful, is through mentorships and internship programs that we provide here through the academy. Some of them are very focused in careers in science. So for those that are curious about the math, the data, right, the raw sciences, we have that. But we also have opportunities for young people that are I used to be like that. It's interesting because I ended up actually in the sciences, more interested in communication, in arts. They don't see themselves with a white lab coat, and that's okay. You can be part of the green and the blue economy. You can be a climate or a biodiversity steward, and you don't need to be doing core science, right, or core research, or be really into technology, for example, or like or yeah, like chemistry, or Dr. Hayes is talking about hydrogen, and I'm kind of like feeling that I'm having a conversation with my husband because he also works in hydrogen and carbon capture and methane capture, and he does the same explanation with the colors, Dr. Hayes. So I love that you explained the same way. So careers, mentorship, and internships is one of the things that we do here, but in a wide range of careers. We have amazing videographers. We have photographers that with books are inspiring and producing so much awe and desire to learn more, perhaps more than, for a specific audience, more than if they talk to one of our amazing researchers. And we have people that go to like crazy depths and like study like reefs and all these amazing things, but it's not for everyone. You asked me about diversity, right? And why it's important to have everyone in the conversation, particularly those communities and the young people that are part of the communities that are most affected by climate change and biodiversity loss. And it's because of that. It's your live experience. We see a lot of climate migrants in the States, right? The reason why many of these people are migrating is because their realities, the ways that they live, have been severely affected, changed with no way to go back to what it used to be because of climate change and or sometimes biodiversity loss at the same time. So if you don't include everyone, you don't have a full picture of the different layers of these very wicked problems, threats that are climate change and biodiversity loss. Some people don't experience those effects, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you should not include those folks. You need to include everyone, particularly those that are feeling it the most. Diversity in opinions, diversity in live experiences, just diversity even in like how you feel, the pain of others, is so fundamental for designing solutions and innovations that are truly inclusive, but through a systems lens, right? And the way that we're getting educated is memorize something, right? We're going to test you and we're going to make sure that you memorize all these, but not through innovation or like through that systems lens. So that's why it's so important just to have everyone's voices and to make sure that regardless of your socioeconomic and cultural background, regardless of whether you speak, English perfectly or you are a trilingual emergent learner, doesn't matter where you come from, how you look, there's a space for you in climate and biodiversity action. So that's like a really important message that I want to give. I have met indigenous people. I have met people that haven't even gone to school, and the impact that they're making in their communities is incredible. So that for me is the importance of like bringing everyone into the drawing board, because these are very wicked problems. These are very complex problems that require many, many, many ideas and many lived experiences.
Yay, love that. Okay, Dr. Hayes, now I'm bringing it back to you because this is a conversation that we are having about the young people.
Okay.
So I kind of actually want to ask you, as the founder of Elite Energy, what advice do you have for young innovators looking to build businesses in sustainable energy?
I say go for it. Just go for it. The reason why I say go for it is because of that's how I got into the space. I would let everybody know on this call, like um, Dr. Gonzalez was saying, I started off as the slowest person in my class when I was younger. So I wasn't even good in math or science when I first started. So I literally had to work hard, and it was out of curiosity and interest over time. And by the time I got to, I think, high school, I got pretty good at it. that I was able to teach others. So because of that experience, I just went to go for it. You know what I'm saying? And one of the things that I've always pushed young people when they say, "Well, I got this idea." Well, I would say this. I mentor young people all year round because my day job is I'm a professor back at my alma mater. So I mentor young people all year round and also mentor little babies in the summer, from K to 8. So or K to 12. And one of the things I just tell them, just go for it. Let's sit down. Let's work this thing out together. And the more that you sit down and I do the one-on-one to try to
Mhm.
make sure, let's really work this thing out and really see what you really want to do. And if there's something that they really want to do, let's tackle it. And not only tackle it, let's not get into the nitty-gritty of the language of STEM, because there's a language barrier in STEM I think people don't really talk about in terms of all the language and the acronyms and all of that stuff that we say. That's what I got stuck up in. But when you take that away and just look at the curiosity of the student and what they truly want to do, and we just continue to push them, guide them, and make sure that they just get to the point where they say, "Oh, this is cool, this is great, this is engaging." Then we can backtrack and learn the language. So I understood that dealing with a lot of diverse learners for those who are underrepresented and underserved, because I come from that background where I didn't come from scientists in my family. I'm telling people I did not. So learning, I had to literally learn everything and then I backtrack and learn the words. And when I came back to become a teacher and a professor, I learned that's what was happening in our community. So I just first tackle the curiosity. If this is something that you want to do, particularly the babies that say, I want to do that. What is that? I don't know. It's a little, it's shiny. Okay, let's look at this shiny thing. It's rocks. So let's analyze the rocks and all of that stuff with climate. And then we go back and then learn the word for the day. And then they'll be cool that they learn a new word. That will spark the curiosity for them to keep going. Because it's one thing to have intellect, but you also need empowerment in order to stay in this game. And that's the biggest thing that I've learned in
Yeah.
climate, for me. And I would tell you, and I'm still learning, even though I got a PhD and all of that, I'm still learning the science realm and the green economy. So for the young people, I would say just get started. Understand that entrepreneurship is a journey. It's like growing up, and you're gonna go through your growing pains as you go through adolescence. It's the same thing as being an entrepreneur. You got growing pains as well. But once you get onto the other side, you'll be happy that you stuck with it and you stuck with yourself. And one thing I would say to add to end this conversation is, well, not end the conversation, but end this, is that entrepreneurship for the youth is like a mirror. Whatever you do is going to come right back at you. So if you win, great, you win. But if you lose, don't think of it as a loss. Because I think it's very important for Gen Z and also Gen Alpha to understand you didn't lose. You just
Mhm.
learned a new lesson, and the lesson is just painful.
Yeah.
But once you get over that pain, and we're going to help you get through that pain, because that's what we hear as the millennials and Gen X and the baby boomer generation here for, then you're going to be okay. And you understand that you're going to constantly go through pains, but by the time you start feeling great and you start really truly winning, you'll say, wow, I did it.
Yep.
And that's what I would say to them. Like, just look at it from that standpoint. We're all growing up. It's just in different sectors. We all babies in something, and we gonna become grown-ups in something one day. I became a grown-up in science, but I'm a kid in entrepreneurship right now. So
I love the way you framed it. Literally love that. And I also love the concept of how you guys are so heavily involved with mentorship, community support, encouraging more young people, especially those from diverse backgrounds who may not see themselves capable of being in the same positions that you guys are in today. So that is actually going to lead me into my next segment where I'm opening the floor for some Q&A. I actually do have members that would like to ask you guys some questions. I know that they're dropping some things in the chat. Let's see if we have anything from anyone. Oh, Pam says she has a question. What is something that you wish you knew when you started your journey in sustainability? I'll open the floor either to whoever would like to start us off.
Go ahead, Dr. Hayes. You go
no,
first.
no, you go ahead. You go ahead, Dr. Gonzalez. I could fall back. That's cool.
Okay, cool. Well, first, thank you for highlighting curiosity as one of the key things that we need to keep even as we get older, right? That should never die. Never, never, never. Curiosity is what sparks innovation. So, something I wish something that I wish I had known when I started in this journey. Um, oh my gosh, too many things. Too many things. That the feeling that sometimes is not enough, that you find something, you find a job, you find an opportunity, and you're so passionate about a problem. And my two wicked problems are climate change and biodiversity loss. And sometimes it feels like I'm not doing enough. But
Mm.
looking at the small things, looking at the one person that you inspire, the one teacher that you help to change the way they're teaching, the one neighborhood that now has trees in the entire block, like celebrate those small things. That is really, really important because these are such large problems that sometimes it's impossible for us to see the immediate results from the collective work. So I wish someone had told me, like, stop, celebrate the small things because those are not small. Those actually are very, very powerful. Because I would definitely kind of go through like these like eco anxiety episodes, like, it's
Mhm.
not enough. I can't do enough. Why am I even trying? And then now at 41, I look back at things that I did and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then that person connected with that other one and that community informed that other one. So sometimes it takes a little bit of time, but celebrate the small things. Even if you educated a family member or you convince someone to, I don't know, eat less meat, for example, because of the carbon footprint, like that's huge. That's huge, right? So I wish someone had told me that. That would have saved me a lot of heartaches and eco anxiety, to be honest with you.
All right, Dr. Hayes, how about yourself?
I would say, of course, curiosity, but I would add on to don't be afraid to ask questions. Um, Even if the question may sound dumb. And the
No
reason
dumb
why I say
questions. No dumb questions.
there's no dumb questions, and the reason why I say that is because something that I wish I would have done, I wish I would have asked questions earlier rather than wait till I couldn't come up with a solution. Being a chemist, PhD chemist, we think we know everything. That's the problem with a lot of us. And we got to really just put that aside. Say, you know what? Just because we are an expert in one thing doesn't mean that we know everything.
Mhm.
So ask the question, even though it may make you look a certain type of way, you got to get out of that mentality. So that's something that I had to learn early on. So I own an education business, but getting into this business, I thought it was the same as the education. Hydrogen energy is totally a different landscape compared to education. Because education is fun, is loving. Dr. Gonzalez, no, it's fun, it's very like communal. Whereas when you get into back into the science world, it's cutthroat, but people willing to give you advice. The problem is I was painful by the cutthroatness of it that I didn't know how to ask for advice because I felt like I didn't belong in the first place. However, when I start asking questions, I start realizing, oh, it's not that I don't belong, it's just I just don't know at this time. But as I continue to ask questions and gain the insight and information, I was able to continue to progress, which goes to the information part. Don't let your imagination limit you because you have a lot of information. And what do I mean by that? Too many times when we're young, we think because we have a lot of information, we know something. But sometimes you can figure out what you know and you can discover things through your imagination. As crazy as it may sound, it may lead to something that becomes innovation in the long run. So don't stop dreaming about what you're trying to do even though it may sound crazy with the scientific mind that it may not make sense. So just continue just to stay, like you said, stay curious before, continue with your imagination. Don't, even though get information, stay imagining things, but also never, ever, ever, don't ever stop asking questions and because when you ask questions, you one day gonna ask the right question. That's gonna lead you to
Mm.
success.
That
So
was a
yeah,
good quote at the end. Oh my gosh. Chris,
yeah.
you said you had a question that you wanted to share out loud. Let us know what it is.
I do. Here, I'll put on my video. Um, I know that we talk about how promising and it's very exciting that in the private sector that there is green careers and green initiatives. There's growth in that. But my curiosity, I'm wondering how, if at all, your youth programs, your educational institutions, your resources, if at all, that's and how that's been impacted by the defunding and divestment from government, whether that's grants from uh, climate and greener initiatives and research, and how are you pivoting?
Do you
Uh,
want?
yeah, I can answer that one. It's a phenomenal question. Um, it's a brave question, Christopher, one we should be asking everyone. Yeah, absolutely. As a research institution that it's leading original science for regeneration of critical natural ecosystems around the world, our funding has been affected. But at the same time, as an institution that holds an entire education division, which is what I'm in charge, we have also been impacted. How we're pivoting, we are focusing for education in everything that's local. So how can we empower the local organizations, grassroots organizations? How can we provide young people, local young people, more opportunities to see themselves in action, to take action, and to be guided in the process for implementing that? And they might make mistakes, that's okay, but having that consistent support. So becoming hyper local, because at that by default you're supporting other local organizations that are literally on the same boat, and you're kind of distributing the scarce funding that's available that's not federal in a much more powerful way. So when these things happen, it's like a big alarm for us. Like it's a reminder of working as a community. Like a community is not just a neighborhood, right? It's like it's a community of like it's universities, it's research institutions, it's schools, it's family. It's like who is part of your community? So that's part of that systems lens that I was saying yesterday. Like let's think of everyone that could be collaborating. So that's our pivot. And rather than, being very scared, like our approach is, okay, how do we change? Let's be strategic, and we recognize the power that our community has in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, in California. So we're kind of getting hyper focused, right? In this geography, and we're finding it to be very, very powerful, because we're finding a lot of partnerships and just people that say, hey, we're already doing that. So rather than, needing the funding for that, we can give you this piece, or I can give you that piece. So just, yeah, working much closer with our local community, not just San Francisco, but like the entire Bay Area and the state, has been a part of our strategy. And it's for education, it's working so far. But it's also, we need to, when your funding changes so abruptly, you also have to pause and really analyze, right, what might be at risk, and just be strategic. So these kind of things generate emotions, but it's always important to have a cool head when you make those decisions, Christopher. So I'm not going to speak about how our research division is making their pivot or aligning, responding, but it's similar. It's working much closer with communities, and in their case, our researchers are in different parts of the world. We work very closely with island ecosystems like Galapagos, Madagascar, for example, the Philippines, Honduras, for coral reef ecosystems. And then we work very closely with California organizations that are protecting the kelp forest, which is one of our unsung heroes, right? Like a huge carbon sink and really, really important. So if I have the opportunity, I always like to sing the praises to the kelp forest. So that's how we're doing it, slowly, right? But like I said, in a very strategic and on not emotional way. It's how we're responding at the moment to those changes.
Okay.
Uh,
Dr. Hayes, we're going to pick your brain team next.
Sure. So I could say for our company events, formerly known as Elite Energy, since its inception, we had to work with less from the very beginning. So we started out with when we launched our company, we started out with zero, and we've been building slowly but surely. Like we got 2,000 and 5,000, then we hit the big one, then six figures and another six. So we've been building slowly, and the federal one, I would say that we literally got that right before number 47 got in, like
Okay.
literally 2 days before we signed the contract and they executed it through. So I know that we might be affected for the next year, but in the meantime, what we've done as a company is because we always been making sure we manage our resources, our capital the way we need to. We just kept doing what we're doing, just to be quite honest. And the reason why we've been in one of our, I always stated this with our team is our the best capital is our human capital. Based on what Dr. Gonzalez is saying is, I always make sure that we make sure we have strategic partnerships to work with our community. So anything that we needed, we just reached out to the community, and we were fortunate enough in the state of Delaware, we had people that had funding, and because they saw and loved that what we were doing was good, that they would lend us a hand. So, for example, institution, they say you need students to help out and work for our operational expenditures. Here go some students, and that's where the education part comes in because not only we have people working with us, but the teacher in me, I'm loving to teach them how we actually do things in our company. So we was fortunate to have that. In addition, in terms of capital, in our state, they funded us like two six-figure funding, which was fortunate enough to last us for another like 2 to 3 years. So with we literally when you talking about federal, Christopher, we literally just got that. Like we literally just got that. And I would say we will worry about it next year, but we were fortunate enough to be in a space where we started off in community. So the way we weren't as affected because when that came down, we were like, well, Dad, we can't probably get another grant, another funding opportunity, but let's try to manage and navigate with what we have. And I could say that we've been doing that since the inception of the company, which is we may not scale fast as others at this time, but I know that if we manage this right, we will come out on the other side.
All right. Christopher is thanking you both for your answers. I'm going to bring up another question that we have in the chat from Samantha. And her question is, if you could challenge young people with one call of action today, what would it be?
If
Okay.
Oh, you want to go first, Dr. Hayes?
Well, I'm gonna do a shameless plug. If you need any opportunities, we are looking for we are giving out internships this year. So if you want to call to action, get into the hydrogen space, want to learn more, you can reach out to me at www.eviince.com. That's events, that's our company. So essentially right now we're looking for internships, but whether you high school, middle school, I know high school to college, we pay people. It's a paid internship, and we could teach you data analysis and all of that stuff. But there's another side that we can look into. But that's the first step. If you don't want to do that, you're not interested, that's fine. I would say, I see that Do Something is doing something phenomenal, which is trash talk and getting into cleaning up trash. So that's one of the things I would say. Just clean up your community, reduce, reuse, recycle, the three R's. And if you want to learn about hydrogen in the long run, there's a science experiment that I would love to share with you guys that y'all can explore on your own to actually understand what basically around the world people are doing. It's real simple, basic concept, but that's what I would say what you can do right now in your community on the science side as well as community.
Hey, Dr. Gonzalez, what's your call to action?
Yeah, it's hard. I have so many. Yeah, the educator in me wants to share a lot. But I would say learn, and it's easy, like Google or friends, right? Can help you with this piece. Learn how to calculate your carbon footprint for one activity, and then make the commitment to reduce that carbon footprint. So whether it's, I don't know, you're really into fashion, right? Like there are super cool apps and super cool companies that give you the opportunity to measure the carbon footprint of your shirt. If it's brand new, even if it's thrifted, say you can commit to reducing that. You can commit to reducing your carbon footprint through your transportation, through the way you're eating. So first of all, understanding, right, how to calculate it based on the activity that you feel it's like the easiest. So for me, I'm really into thrifting. So my big one is like clothing. I like to I put my like goals, achievable small goals, and say, okay, I'm gonna reduce my family's carbon footprint around clothing by this much. I know how much I was, what my footprint was last year, but don't ever let anyone tell you that those small added contributions don't have an impact. They have a huge impact, particularly when it comes to carbon and methane, right? Which is much more, the stronger, more powerful, right, greenhouse gas. So I would say learn about carbon footprint, and then find the one activity that you want to commit to reducing your carbon footprint. And then in connection to that, then there's this term from the father of environmental education, Dr. Charles Hopkins. He likes to say there's reducing your carbon footprint, but there's increasing your handprint. So it's how much you're doing. So, increasing that just in general. How can you give back to those that have less opportunities for learning, less opportunities for whatever it is? Because that fills your heart, and that's important as well. When we're thinking about, the impact and the way we can make an impact, like filling our hearts is an important thing as well, to balance things out.
Love that. Okay, so essentially, if for my young people, if you guys are seeing this, they're calling you guys out to join the field. That is literally what I am hearing. We do also have one more question from Katie, which Katie is asking, how do you think AI, we're going back to that conversation of AI, will influence the future as it comes to environmental and sustainability jobs?
I could speak on it now. Particularly, I could say in the hydrogen space, it's already there, which is interesting enough, by a company by the name of Plug Power, which is based I think, in New York City. They got a fully automated AI ran factory. So that builds sustainable solutions in the hydrogen space. So I could say that it's already there, but also I could say for environmental sustainability, it's going to be there for data and analysis, things that you can reproduce. But I think still with that question, the human component is still going to be there. Specifically, we talking about science communication. Science communication, communicating things to the public that they can understand, they can digest, and they can know what they can do for call to action. It's still going to be prevalent. But I think for the technical side, things that can be reproduced, over and over again, that's where AI will play a big play. And I could say for AI and hydrogen, that's why I alluded to earlier in the conversation is the data centers, powering data centers. Because although one thing about AI that I always joke with people about is, yes, it's coming, but you need energy in order to make it keep going. And
Mhm.
you will need clean energy to make sure it keep going at the same time. So there's no AI without energy, and it's not vice versa. So with that being said, you still need people in the mix, in terms of making sure artificial intelligence is going to run the way it's going to run.
Okay. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting.
Thank you, Dr. Hayes. I mean, you basically answered what I was going to answer. I see it more from a, yeah, technological standpoint. I mean, driving innovations like manufacturing, and that goes with interpreting, implementing, right, these big data sets. That's where I see where a space, a very strong and powerful space for AI. Of course, I'm in San Francisco, so I see the propositions, the ways like AI, and some of them are against, right? As an educator, a storyteller, I'm gonna continue fighting the good fight that the way that we tell the stories about action and the need to take action and how we interpret the work, for example, that you're doing, Dr. Hayes, to like, your average common person that perhaps is not very knowledgeable in like chemistry. That needs to be done by people, but also when we implement solutions, and we think about who's missing in those solutions. We need the empathy, right? And we need the compassion that only a human can bring. So I see a lot in San Francisco, we have a lot of pushes, right? Like where some, people even say like, well, it's going to replace teachers, and those are right textbooks, right? And of course, I'm against all that, but I totally agree with you that that's where what you said, Dr. Hayes, in the technology, manufacturing, energy, absolutely, and the managing and understanding and implementing like these big data sets that we have for climate and biodiversity science. AI is just fundamental, it's crucial, we need it, but we have to be, we can't forget what like I said before, like what our hearts can give to these complex solutions that we need to design and collectively implement, and that cannot be replaced by any artificial intelligence.
I actually have a random question myself. So this is actually more so specifically going to go to you, Dr. Gonzalez, because I know you work with like coral reefs. Mind you, I saw you like floating in the middle of the ocean. I think that's like the biggest fear for me is just to be out. In my mind, I feel like we don't know as much down as what's going on down there. So I was like, oh my God, that's such a moment. And that was one thing that consistently like stuck out with me. And just to kind of take it a step further, I won't lie, I actually don't know how to swim. I am going to be learning how to swim this summer. So hopefully I will be able to get past that fear. But what have you learned, I guess, essentially, from doing the work that you do and conservation and learning that the coral reefs, essentially, I noticed they were dying out. How is that genuinely going to impact our future, the next generation's future, in the next about like 10 years?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are for someone that doesn't grow up close to them, or has never visited, or been a coral reef or been under the water. These can feel like a really alien, right, place. And like,
Mhm.
what? Like, I live in the middle of a city. How does that impact me? The connections, the dependency that we have as a species with all these different ecosystems, including coral reefs, it's so magical. It's almost like, someone designed it in this really smart way, nature, I say, right? Because think about it. A coral reef is it's a giant ecosystem that's formed by corals, and corals are in essence colonies of these little worms. But these little worms are able to live thanks to a symbiosis, let's say like a partnership, right? That they have with these bacteria that does the same thing that plants do, right? They absorb energy from the sun and they release oxygen. So like the ocean, not only from coral reefs, from other organisms, and I'm not going to get too much into the marine biology piece, but they provide most of the oxygen that we breathe, more than, from land forests. So we depend as a species from the animal kingdom. We depend so much from coral reef stability and health, and as any other, I would say, natural ecosystem. If you think about coral reefs are also functioning as a nursery where like the little babies of the different fish species, right, are like finding Nemo. Think of Finding Nemo, right? Like this is where the little fish are like, I can hang here, nothing bad's gonna happen to me. They can grow, and eventually they go into like deeper waters.
Yeah.
That's where like another like set of connections happens. Think about fisheries. If you eat fish, right, like your fish started there. So there's all these economic implications as well, from healthy coral reefs to like who is able to get money in their pockets from being in the fishing industry, ideally sustainable fishing industry, right? To the food availability, like you having the possibility to say, I'm gonna go buy, fish and have that tonight. The implications of healthy corals are so many. But I would even say just like the small ones, like oxygen, right? And how these ecosystems are producing, they're fundamental for keeping the ocean clean. And same thing with like sharks, like they're just portrayed as these evil man-eating, right, like animals. And without sharks, the oceans would basically become these extremely polluted, not from human-made, right, materials, but from actual like organic matter. So everything in nature has a role, everything, and we are part of nature. So we depend on the corals, we depend on the forest, we depend on the sharks, we depend on everything. But yeah, I'm glad that you're learning how to swim, and hopefully after that you go snorkeling and you get to see the coral under the
That's
water.
literally why I think it was a part of being able to watch watch that docuseries and see how you were just so, and you explained it like when you're in the ocean, you're at peace. And I think hearing that, I was just like, I need to have that moment. And then also the way you describe like the coral reef ocean being this beautiful place. And I'm just like, I want to be able to kind of experience that. So that's my goal. I hopefully this summer I'm out here snorkeling. Yes. And then lastly, I'm gonna kick it back to you, Dr. Hayes, with another future kind of outlook question. What do you see as the most exciting advancements in green energy in the next 5 to 10 years? And how can young professionals prepare for these emerging opportunities?
Sure. So I'm gonna keep it North America because I can go all over. So I would say in the United States, what I see is I love our this generation in terms of getting into things and being really environmentally conscious. So one of the renewable energy I would say is going to take off regardless whoever's in office is the solar energy,
Mhm.
because it's already here and it's it got a whole financial model. So that's going to take off. The next one is going to be offshore wind or the wind. So that's solar's one, wind is number two. What young people can get in, and you don't have to be technical. This is what I want to convey. When you get into energy, it doesn't always have to be technical. We need sales. My co-founder is not technical at all. He's a project manager. He just set meetings all day, bring all the technical people together. So that's an occupation. So we need everyone in this particular space and in these industries. But I would say solar, wind, and then of course, hopefully, if the infrastructure and the finances come together, hydrogen. But what young people can do to get into these industries, because everything is on the ground floor, this is this is why I would say it's a big secret in the energy. Everybody don't know what's going on. So it's okay. We don't know either. So I say all that to say and so, just you can start Googling what is solar energy, because that's 9 times out of 10, I run into people in the industry all the time. I say, "How long you been in here?" Oh, I only got in here 2 months. Oh, so you learning like I'm learning. So everybody is learning this particular energies and sectors, and you can too. Matter of fact, you may know more than us.
Mhm.
So I was because y'all understand Google, y'all know how to actually research natively because y'all grew up on information in the information age. So just start looking at what you want to do and then curate your own career in doing it. As you saw the former panelist, she did it through science communication. She communicates it and then she found resources to put it together. You can do that as well. You can get technical like me, or you can even go just find what I'm saying is create your own career within the space because no career is not important in the environmental, clean energy, renewable energy space. No career is not important. Every career is important in this space right now. And if somebody tell you otherwise, tell them come see me because I know what I'm talking about. Because I'm telling you, everybody is crucial in this space right now. Everybody, from the community engagement to the public service to the
Mhm.
tech scientists, everybody. We need everybody. So create your own job within the space.
I love that. I feel like that's like a little like lingering piece of information that we need to be leaving with our young members is essentially like making space for yourselves no matter what. I feel like that it's alluding back to Christy where her journey was so different, but she decided, you know what, I'm going to bridge all of this together and thus Green Jobs Boards was born. So I really love that. Before we head out, this was so freaking amazing. Oh my gosh. I actually want to ask you kind of alluding the same question, Dr. Gonzalez. Again, where do you see in the next 5 to 10 years advancements in green energy? And just another kind of like a little like another last little call to action for our young people and our members that's going to be watching this, just kind of a little inspiration moment. Like where are or like how can young professionals prepare also for the emerging opportunities and kind of work in the fields of where you're at?
Yeah, great. I think that 100% agree with what Dr. Hayes just said. We need everyone in order to launch, a new wave, a new era of equitable, fair, and accessible clean energy. We're going to need everyone, right? From like your reporter to your singer, to your scientist, to your engineer. So don't forget that the future includes everyone, every single career, regardless of your passion, regardless of your interest. There's a space for you in this sustainable future, right? Um, I think that perhaps it's not what I would dream that where we were, we be heading towards. For clean energy, not so much clean energy, but a new economy, right? An economy that, you know, moves away from the extractive, destructive model. We take our resources, we produce something, we throw it away, but I can go back to the website and click and buy another thing, right? We move from that economic model, but also from that mindset that that click creates the satisfaction and grows our identities, and we move away from all that, and we kind of with a new economy and with new technologies and with fair, accessible, and inclusive energies for everyone, for every community. Then we rise a generation that values these other things, right? I think the message is that I don't know how old Dr. Hayes is, so I don't know your generation, but at least I grew up, right, valuing, other things besides the click, because I didn't have the click. I didn't have like social, social media. We have to remember that as individuals, we are so important beyond what our social media presence is, or our capacity to buy things, particularly things that are specific brand, or we're just gonna throw away when like a new trend comes away. We should be creating those trends. We should be proud of whom we are, regardless of our background, regardless of how we look, regardless of how we speak, right? And those are the things that we should be valuing, rather than how much are you buying, what are you buying, right? To create an impression, sometimes to create a fake impression, right? So that's kind of the I don't know, the inspiring message. I know it's hard, right? Because as Dr. Hayes said, you're born into this era of technology, this age of technology, and the phones and social media is very much part of your realities. But just please remember that that's not just the most important thing, right? Like your presence in social media, but also the capacity that you and or your family have for purchasing things. The items, the things really is not what creates a fulfilling life. It's the moments that you spend with yourself, with your friends, and ideally with your family as well, regardless of how your family looks, right? Small, little, whatever structure or model, right, your family has. So yeah, that's I think I have a lot more advices, but I'm gonna focus on that one.
Yay. Oh my gosh, this was so amazing. So I really want to thank you guys so much for joining us tonight and being able to have this amazing yet inspirational conversation, and just that concept of like encouraging our members, not even just our members, because I know at some point we may have some non-members that might be able to like see this down the line, but just essentially helping them turn that curiosity, like you said, I feel like that's the word, the buzzword of the night is curiosity, imagination, anything that they're already passionate about in the field of STEM, and just kind of answering a lot of questions that they might have in terms of being able to drive sustainability. Um, Again, I want to thank you guys so much for the inspiring stories, this insightful conversation around STEM for sustainability, and to have a good night. I'm gonna kind of like close us out. Yeah.